Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Katie Larson, the Resource Description Coordinator. I manage and coordinate cataloging across the university libraries in the Marriott Library at the University of Utah. And today I'll be presenting with Ambra Gagliardi, who manages collection development. We will be presenting leveraging automation in library systems to cope with limited staffing and dynamic collection holdings. Here is our conference code of conduct slide. You can view the code of conduct by scanning this QR code. A little bit about what we will and will not cover. We will explain why and how we're using automated holdings updates to manage our electronic holdings. Because we use Alma, this presentation will lean that way. If you're using another software product, your experience could differ. We have included as much general information as possible. We'll describe 3 different approaches: knowledge base, integration, and publishing, provide pros and cons for each approach, and define commonly used terms in our own words. Full definitions are listed in the speaker notes of this slide deck, and that is available for download. We will share some ideas for safeguarding owned content while utilizing auto holdings. We will not give step-by-step instructions for implementing auto holdings. Alma has a lot of information and documentation on how to do this, and you can learn a lot by reading our references at the end of this slide deck. We will not comprehensively present all the ways to automate your holding updates. This will be a discussion of our experiences and what we've learned.
So we wanted to start with a little background about us and why we started using auto holdings. The University of Utah is a research-intensive institution. Katie and I are both located at the Marriott Library on our main campus. Our campus also includes a health sciences and a law library, each in their own location, but we all use one system to manage our holdings. On the screen, we've provided a figure of our collections budget and some information about the size of our collections team to give you an idea of what we're managing annually and how many people are responsible for managing it. And as mentioned before, our libraries use Ex Libris Alma for managing our holdings and Primo as our discovery. So for years, our collections team managed electronic holdings in our local system by activating knowledge-based collections, but mostly we created manual electronic collections and uploaded vendor mark records to those collections. We really hesitated using automated tools within Alma because when we did try it in the past, we felt that we unexpectedly lost access to some of our important perpetual holdings. However, following the retirement of a colleague who oversaw much of this manual work, we really did struggle to keep up. So with new staff on board this year and a gentle nudge from our library leadership, we began transitioning to more automated tools and started implementing a few and have found that it has been a pretty successful endeavor. The first type of automated holdings approach we will discuss is knowledge-based automation. Within Alma, the terms community zone and knowledge base are often used interchangeably, and we will use them in this manner during this presentation. However, it is worth noting that they are slightly different things. The community zone is available to all Alma users and includes the knowledge base within it. The knowledge base contains linking information for e-resource management. Along with the knowledge base, the community zone also includes metadata and authority repositories. Using a knowledge base is one way to automate e-resource holdings. However, it isn't directly labeled as automated holdings, likely because the workflow becomes manual if specific options are turned off in the activation process. So to give you an idea of how this works, within Alma, you can activate a knowledge-based collection to manage your e-resources in 3 ways. The first way is by activating the complete electronic collection without selecting individual portfolios. Portfolios within ALMA are the e-resource records that contain coverage and linking details. This approach only works when your electronic holdings match the knowledge base collection. So in other words, it's not a custom package. This is the truly automated way to use a knowledge base to manage holdings. However, ongoing automation only works as long as certain boxes are checked in the electronic collection's full text service. This can be done at the time of setup or after. The second way to use ALMA's knowledge base to manage e-resources is by activating selected portfolios and using the portfolio loader, a tool that uses an Excel spreadsheet to adjust coverage and holdings to match a custom package. This option we dub as quasi-automated because you don't need to create a local collection manually. However, you won't receive updates like additions and deletions automatically going forward, so eventually the process becomes manual. The third way to use ALMA's knowledge base to manage e-resources is by activating the electronic collection and manually selecting portfolios at the setup and ongoing as your collection changes over time. So this is the most manual way to utilize a knowledge base. We use knowledge base automation for a variety of collections. For example, many of our e-journal packages like our American Institute of Physics or our Society of Automotive Engineers are activated using our knowledge base, and we've enabled our system to add and delete portfolios automatically. However, with a custom package like our Springer Nature collection, we kind of go the quasi-automated route where we've activated a knowledge-based collection, but we manually select which titles are pulled in, and we have to manually remove ones as our custom package changes over time. We use full knowledge-based automation for ebook packages like our Elsevier package or many of our evidence-based acquisition programs. We also use full knowledge-based automation for streaming media like Swank and Avon. So the real benefit of knowledge-based automation is that it's really helpful when your electronic collection matches what's within the knowledge base. So it includes the same titles and coverage. Some drawbacks of knowledge-based automation is that it's really only suitable for subscribed and leased content up until your subscription ends. After that, you'll need to manually revert your collection to what you own in perpetuity, if applicable. Another drawback is that there aren't always knowledge-based collections that match your electronic holdings. For example, front lists take time to make it into knowledge bases because it relies on the publisher working with the vendor. Additionally, some publishers simply don't work with certain knowledge-based providers, and there are no knowledge-based collections for you to use. The last drawback is that terminology within knowledge bases can be confusing. So for example, within ALMA, you can activate an aggregator package, which is the entire publisher's package, or a selective package, which is some portfolios. The problem is that ALMA's made an update where they've enabled automation for both, making the distinction largely obsolete, so it can be confusing. ALMA's knowledge base isn't the only one that can be used for automated holdings. OCLC's WorldShare Collection Manager also supports integration with other systems and can be used to automate holdings. In fact, some publishers prioritize OCLC when updating KBARTs, which occasionally can make OCLC's data more accurate. Additionally, we wanted to bring to your attention that the term automated holdings is used by OCLC to describe the process of libraries automatically sending their holdings data to them so it can be discoverable in WorldCat. It's a good example of how the term automated holdings is more fluid than most people realize.
Next, I'd like to talk about integration automation. Integrations are the technical framework or configuration within your local system that allows external systems to connect and exchange data. This is a direct connection between your local library software and the vendors. When people refer to automated holdings, they typically mean integrations connected through API, which enables automatic synchronization with the publisher's KBART file. That is the vendor's record of your holdings. The connection can be initiated automatically on a set schedule. Each time communication is initiated, your local holdings, coverage, bibliographic, and linking information are updated to match the vendor's KBART file. Connecting via API enables two-way, real-time communication between your local system and the systems and software of an external entity, in this case, the vendor. Two-way communication allows for the editing of information after the initial transfer. This two-way communication can look something like the chat conversation to the right, where our instance of Alma connects to JSTOR, and they exchange information. We've used integrations for our Taylor and Francis e-journals, Taylor and Francis ebooks, and our JSTOR ebooks. These collections are fully automated through an API and set to run regularly. Because we sometimes purchase single titles, we have our preferences for both ebooks vendors set to direct new purchases to the Auto Holdings electronic collection. Some benefits of using integration automation are that you don't need to manually correct your collection when changes occur, like title changes for subscribed journal packages. And if your local software supports it, you can set notifications to remind you an integration was initiated and what information was exchanged. On the downside, some vendors combine subscribed and purchased content into a single electronic collection. If you've purchased perpetual resources like journal back files and have current subscriptions as well, it's hard to tell which items are owned. You can use POLs to identify owned content. Likewise, each vendor decides how the information in the KBART file is presented. They may combine perpetual and subscription coverage lines, and this can be confusing. Some, like Taylor and Francis, have recognized this and offer libraries options to simplify the view. If you don't pay attention to the reports generated by the integration, it can be challenging to track changes. And if you want to retain and maintain an additional local electronic collection to keep a record of your perpetual resources, you may choose to make adjustments to the discovery, like suppressing the collection or using display logic to prevent it from showing in your discovery layer. Once the integration is set up and scheduled to run regularly, all you need to do is review the reports and look for errors. Some library information systems allow you to set up notification emails and generate reports. This report was generated in Alma, and you can see that it shows the action that was taken, the title, and a lot more information.
The third and final type of automated holdings approach we will discuss is publishing automation, or in more generic terms, exporting data to external systems. The conversation around automated holdings often centers around how to get data into your system from external systems. But we wanted to broaden the conversation to include examples of ways holding information can be sent outside of your system to make it discoverable in other systems. Publishing profiles is a tool within Alma that uses a data exchange known as SFTP transfers to export data from the system to third-party servers. Examples of how we're using publishing profile automation include our Gobi load. We provide our ebook holdings information to Gobi via FTP transfer, allowing them to add it to their ordering system. This allows selectors and acquisition staff in our library to see a warning if they try to order an ebook of something we already own or lease. We use tools within Alma called logical sets to send updated holdings information to Gobi. The sets are dynamic, meaning that it updates itself when changes to our holdings occur. Another example of a publishing automation is Google Scholar, which uses a different type of method known as direct secure transfer method, which is an out-of-the-box publishing profile within Alma. Google Scholar creates links to held electronic journal articles. This method provides expanded access to our users from inside and outside our campus network. The main benefit of publishing automation is that your library holdings are discoverable in external systems, which can be beneficial to both users and library staff. A drawback is that your holdings are discoverable in external systems. So vendors that we buy a lot of resources from see all of our content and can use this information however they like. Another drawback is that vendors haven't quite worked out all the kinks. So in the case of Google Scholar and Alma, only electronic journal holdings can be automated to transfer out into the Google system to be discoverable, and things like ebooks and print holdings are not yet discoverable.
When Marriott Library launched our Taylor and Francis journal package about a year ago, a significant amount of time was spent manually adjusting coverage, manually activating resources, making spreadsheet edits, and using portfolio loader updates. Multiple staff members were allocated to the effort of getting the package into Alma. We intended to track the title changes, but never found time, and the collection quickly became outdated. We decided to set up the same Taylor and Francis collection as an integration via API auto holdings collection. And it took less than a week to do what we had spent months trying to accomplish manually. The collection was quickly and accurately synced. Automation wins. As much as we love and trust all our vendors, we like to keep our own records. There are a few ways you can save and protect your own content. The first option is to create and maintain a suppressed copy of the perpetually owned local collection. Collections can be suppressed at the collection level. If you're using Alma, there's no need to suppress each portfolio. This may also be available in other software systems. The collection and individual portfolios will not show up in Discovery. That's the catalog your users interact with, but will remain in your local backend catalog. You must remember to exclude suppressed records when collecting holding stats. We've kept and suppressed local collections for our Swank streaming and our Taylor and Francis perpetually owned ebooks collections.
The second strategy for safeguarding perpetually owned content while utilizing auto holdings is to maintain an unsuppressed active copy of the collection. This means that you'll have two identical collections on your backend. It also means that users will see two identical access points on the discovery layer. A benefit is that you have two collections. So if one collection breaks, users don't lose access. And if you've implemented auto holdings before, you know that sometimes those auto holdings collections break and it takes time to figure out why. Another benefit is that you can use tools in your discovery layer to decide how or if the active copy displays to the user. In Primo, this is called display logic. A drawback is that you have two collections to maintain. So it takes away all the time you're saving from using automation. but provides that extra peace of mind for backup.
In addition, you can export the set of perpetually owned records and store the file in a backup environment. You no longer need a record of them in your public or backend catalog if you go this route. You'll have a file reminding you of what is owned, but you will need to remember you have that file.
In conclusion, automated holdings has come a long way. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. Publishers are becoming more aware of our holdings needs with our library system providers and are working with them to make integration more efficient. When we negotiate with publishers or vendors before buying or leasing electronic resources, we often ask if they have automated holdings. The more we all ask, the more they will realize that it is important to us. Also, it's doable. If Katie and I can figure it out, so can you. Library systems often provide a lot of documentation when implementing auto holdings, and listservs can also be your friend and a valuable resource. We recommend starting small and doing what makes sense for your library. Thank you.